Um, so this is the first round of the Spacechem tournament 2023. The idea of this puzzle was to kind of make a big molecule, a fairly simple symmetric molecule, out of something small with a limited number of bonders. So I only gave you 4 bonders to do that, and that was supposed to be the main challenge. The good thing about this molecule is all the pieces, you have CH2, NH, and O, all can be made from a CH2 by fusing one or both of the hydrogens in. So all the fusion mass should have been fairly easy, and that there wasn't a single person who chose to do something weirder, which is what I was expecting. So to start off, we have the solution in 19th place by whoever 314. So whoever chooses to do something fairly unusual, they choose a strange isomer to make, which involves breaking one of the CH2s and reforming it into this straight piece. This is one way you can have 2 sides that are identical rather than just rotationally symmetric. They can be built identical, rather than just like reflectionally symmetric, and be built identically, which is good. It means you can do the same thing twice exactly the same way, and that will save you symbols rather than having 2 different ways of doing things. However, where whoever loses out is that everything is quite custom in that there's not much there's not much reuse of the pathing. Each element, each component, and by component I mean CH2 block, is attached in a different way. So here what they're doing is they're essentially creating a line of 3 CH2 blocks, but they've done it attaching each one individually, going along in a straight path rather than doing a loop and attaching each one in the same manner. This obviously costs quite a lot of symbols compared to the better approaches we'll see later. Also, this having to break the bond and spin, it's something I don't see that much, so I can't say if it's definitely worse, but it seems like unnecessary work compared to a better solve. Another unique thing about this solution is it has a bounce back to get the oxygen. That's not seen anywhere else, and bouncing back like that is probably costs symbols as well, rather than doing it all in one pass, keeping in one direction. Another thing to notice is this here, where blue not starting in the path, it goes directly through this flip-flop, and that's a technique that everyone on the call, I'm sure, is very familiar with, but people watching on YouTube might not be. This allows you to kind of prime the flip-flop, so the first time you pass over the flip-flop, you go down. You could have equally done something like this, and then it's exactly the same, but it costs you a symbol. The reason I specifically pointed out here is because this flip-flop here looks like you can't prime it because it's got to redirect in 2 directions. You go right first, then back, and then you redirect going back upwards. But that's actually not the case. You can rearrange that over to here and fairly simply solve a symbol, I think. Yeah, and I'll just let everyone and watch it through to an output. This path of going up, down, up looks quite cycles-like. This is what I imagine maybe a cycle source will do. Keep going in one direction, adding things on with inputting more stuff, but not normally the best way to go for symbols. And this comes out at 52 symbols for 19th place. Next we move on to foxadecimal, who sits in 18th. Now foxadecimal is the only one to make this isomer. The making is they make a box of C2, CH2, NH, CH2. Put the oxygen inside, and then 2 of these will then make the final basilisk. And an advantage of this way of doing it is it's quite conceptually simple. It just makes these quite easy to handle boxes. You don't need to worry a lot about avoiding the hydrogens when you rotate and stick stuff onto the nitrogen, which is what a lot of the better solutions will do. But it does again require this breaking a bond and then going down, and that uses up quite a lot of symbols. Other than that, this solution has some fairly awkward pathing at the top. That's 4 redirect symbols all squashed together. I'm not sure to what extent that could be avoided. I haven't played around the solution enough to know. Only that that flip-flop can be primed, just like that. Okay, and that it looks much neater, much neater pathing, and yeah, it is a big jump in symbols down to 40 from 52, so 12 symbols saved between the last solution. Next, we get to Yellowbunny, also on 40 symbols. Yellowbunny also comes with a non-standard method of constructing the basilisk and a non-standard isomer. They choose not to use a symmetrical or not have identical halves, which means that each half has to have some slightly different pathing, and for this they construct just a line of NHs and then find a way they can, after that's made, they find a way that it doesn't produce the same thing, but it's the exact same command, which is quite clever to put the ends on. So puts it on with the H's facing down, and then with the H's facing to the right, and it makes a valid molecule doing that. So it's finding a non-obvious, a subtle symmetry in the puzzle.
Hey, Jojo.
Hey,
How's it going?
it's good. Yeah, we're just on. I think this is Yellowbunny, so we've done 2 solutions. This is the third.
Oh, I see. So this time I've looked at them before the stream, so I'm super prepared.
Nice. Another thing to note is I said earlier when I was introducing the puzzle that I thought the challenge was doing it in just 4 bonders. Yellowbunny decides he doesn't need 4. He's going to do it in 3, and gives us this solve.
Yeah, for something this big, like there is an obvious symmetry, and we will see later that you really want as much bonder as you can.
Yeah.
Because the obvious symmetry is, well, no spoilers yet, but to exploit that, you need to dedicate 2 bonders to it, and you would really like to have like more, 4, 6 to use for building the rest of the pieces.
The only thing more I could say about this is a slight source of extra symbols as the sinks is nearly always better to not use sinks, especially in a puzzle that's this simple.
I mean, this
don't...
simple, come on, it's
the good solutions make it look simple.
But yeah, that's, you can say that about getting pumped as well. That doesn't mean it's simple.
Sure.
Let's move on.
Let's go on. So yeah, so Yellowbunny 30 symbols for 17th place. Next, we have Bambi. So
This is Andy.
Bambi.
Ah.
No, not Andy. Bambi does something that we see is probably the most common approach.
Yeah.
It's to make this isomer, which doesn't require breaking any bonds, and has 2 identical halves. So kind of has the best of both Yellowbunnies and the 2 we saw previously in one shape. Yellowbunny's way of doing that is another thing not Yellowbunny, Bambi's way of doing that is something else we'll see a lot later, which is to make a line of 3 of the 4 components and then put the other one on in its own handling.
Yeah, so for when there are molecules that have are made of multiple monomers in a simple puzzle, you always want to exploit doing one monomer at a time and then putting them together. So like the approach we've seen earlier that does the spine and then does the little extras is the typical cycles approach. We just want to build the thing all in one go. Yeah. While a symbols approach looks like this, you want to make a piece, attach it, another piece, attach it, and reuse. This just has 2 components, but we will see later that they are not attaching all these pieces to a nitrogen. It's all kind of similar. Yeah. It's a simple example. There are many simpler examples of this where you have to attach an input to a growing molecule with some slight changes. Like the typical example is there's no planet challenge where you do the giant acid touching a water at a time. That's an easier version of this, where you need to keep attaching pieces to a growing cluster. This is more complicated because it has more transformation.
With this one, despite it's putting things in a line with various amount of fusing, but it does almost 3 completely different paths to do that. Whereas a better solution would reuse almost as identically the same path to attach these 3 different things.
We will see
Yeah,
solutions
so
that do that.
you're using blue here, you use red first, start at the beginning. So red
Let's go.
first coming this way, and then going around the top for the nitrogen, and then blue for the third one, and then we do get to reuse blue to put the fourth in. And just repeat, attach, and output. Next up, so this is 15th place, we have Astronelson, and Astronelson decides to almost completely reject symmetry and handle pretty much everything uniquely. One of the things this does have as an advantage over other solution classes is it gets to continuously attach to the same molecule. It doesn't have to build one half, take it to the side, and then construct the other half and move them together. It can just continue attaching things, but to do that,
Yeah,
it loses a lot in symmetry.
yeah, you pay that with the sensor array.
Yeah.
So, you know, cosmology of complexity. Somewhere you need to store. If you don't do a simple repeating process, you need to store the complexity somewhere, and in the solution it's stored in the sensor array. That is very, very complicated.
So So the sensor array is handling almost every every CH2 block individually, and I'm quite surprised it gets this low. It's some very clever sensor use to do it. And another one that manages to only use 3 bonders.
Yeah, this is, I guess, you would want something like this if you had to put together both from alpha and beta and they were intensely random.
Yeah.
Then, say, imagine you had to place together all pieces that were really all different. When you would need something like this with some clever sorting.
Yeah.
But this is overkill for this level.
Yeah.
And it's not often that you can discard the solution concept just on the basis of cosmology of complexity, but I think this is kind of a case of that. Like in both puzzle, you want to minimize the cosmology of complexity of your solution, and this doesn't. But this is well implemented for what it is. So it doesn't score badly at all. It also looks reasonably nice.
Yeah, quite.
That is fast. Let's see the cycle count.
But not that fast, really, compared to even something much better solved. It's got quite long loops, and to go here it goes up and down, and you spend a long time sort. It spends like 2 cycles of red stalling over here. Next we have probably the most complicated scoring solve from BigMangoHead. BigMangoHead is quite similar to Astronelson in that they also decide to reject symmetry, but instead of offloading the complexity that you get from that into a sensor array, they do it via this huge red timing loop with these 7 different fuses.
Man.
BigMangoHead
So
messaged me and said they actually used they wrote a Python script to kind of set some constraints on it and say. Sorry.
I can tell because tuning a timing loop of a dozen cycles is doable by hand, but red is gigantic.
Yeah.
And, when you have timing loops this big, they alias with other pieces of a cycle. This is terrifying. Like synthetic Elerium has a solution like that. On the 2013 tournament, PseudoDude made the top symbol solution, and it looks like this gigantic timing loop, like 50 cycle long, and by magic it pulls out the correct atoms, and it's ununderstandable. Yeah. I guess PseudoDude as well did the script. Like this kind of solution are outside of human comprehension. Yeah. And this.
Sorry, you go on.
This again suffered the same problem the previous solution suffered. This uses an extremely clever method, but this is the wrong puzzle for it. Like this puzzle has gigantic symmetry, and you are using a general purpose timing machine to build something with gigantic symmetry. And it's sad because this is clearly well engineered. It's very clearly well engineered. There's no sinks anywhere. Timing is impressive. It's just that this kind of machinery is not at home in this puzzle.
They do.
But I'm impressed.
Yeah, it's impressive. They do give themselves just enough freedom for something like this to be possible, in allowing themselves to place 7 different fuse commands, and having this can all be extended by 1. They can put timing, they can put store flip-flops on all these walls. They allow themselves a bounce back with blue. Another thing to note about the solution is that normally, or at least when I'm building timing monsters like this, I try and make all the different paths come out to the same cycle length to make it much easier, but it doesn't here.
That's a luxury. You don't usually get that. You need to work with the difference. The least common multiple of the greatest common denominator of the difference between paths.
Yeah.
And because you would be very lucky if you get what you proposed in the average puzzle. You often need to work with a path delta around 2 or 3 different paths. But this is over complex.
So what
what
I meant is all the different options that a blue could take. So, for example, blue rotate these 2 paths from blue are exactly the same length. They go out to this far, then they rotate and go join together again. But that's not the case here. This blue path is a different length, which makes it so much more complex.
That's the bottom path as well, and it's terrifying. I mean, congratulations for seeing this to the end. Highly non-trivial.
Yeah. I think one thing that would have told me this is probably the wrong way to go is how little work Red is doing. It's going all the way around just to time the fuses correctly. I think that would have been an indication to me that there's probably a better way of handling this. Moving on. Next we got the first team. So this is Norris Phat Jam, which is, I believe, anime and someone new, so I'll have to check their name.
Okay. So this is Anime and the Margarita Kid.
Margarita, who is new to Spacechem tournament, so nice work on your debut, getting into places. This is 12th place, so slightly outside the
Okay.
top 10.
This looks like a symmetric solution.
Is it? No,
Okay.
sorry. It's 13th place.
This looks like it uses symmetry. You can tell by the placement of the rightmost boundaries.
It's not quite a symmetry solve. It's more symmetry than the last two we've seen, but it's not.
Yeah, I mean, that's a small bar to clear.
But it finds a very low symbol way of dealing with the lack of symmetry, which I'll get to when we meet it.
Okay.
It's also the first solution to notice that if you start with the nitrogen, what ends up being the nitrogen as the central atom, you can rotate around it and attach the CH2 groups to the outside. And that's a very simple way of constructing your molecule.
Yeah. If you're smart about it, you can also get the fuses in the movement. This is heavily exploited in other solutions.
See, it creates, and it has this vertical O bond. Pause it here. With a vertical O bond, it's not possible to not break any CH bonds and have two identical halves. So this is it's fused the nitrogen in on the has it? Yeah, so it's fused this nitrogen differently both times.
Yeah, blue. The problem of this solution is that you need both halves not to be identical, so blue needs to choose very different paths.
Yeah.
And it's not a big deal because blue is light on symbols, but still it costs the solution a little bit. But this gets into the groove of what a good solution is.
Yeah. Superficially, it has quite a low symbols way of doing that. It's just this flip flop that differentiates between the two types. Changing the timing to be going these slightly differently is enough to fuse in a different manner. There's, on the first pass through for the first half, it stores on this H symbol. But
on
the second half,
it
doesn't store here, so it
will leave the fuses in different spots.
Yeah, it uses the fuses on different CH2.
There is a ton of freedom, there is a sync, there is a lot of explicit timing with used symbols, so there is a way to find an arrangement of 3 or 4 fuses that work.
Yeah.
This isn't super surprising. And because you exploit symmetry, you need to time 3 or 4 fuses and not 7 like a previous solution, and you get much easier things. Like that blue timing loop is trivial to time. Not trivial, but it's easy to time. Humans can do it with no issue.
Yeah, so doing this bounce back is just for timing.
Yeah.
As is syncs.
Yeah, there is some symbols as lost to explicit timing, but what can you do? Onwards, mstang.
Next we have mstang in 12th place, and this is the first hammer solution. A hammer solution is just when one of the Waldos will hit a wall with a symbol on it, and it will then execute that symbol every cycle until completion.
Yeah, fuse hammers are common. For this level, if you want to hammer something, fuse is arguably the best choice. Because nitrogen and carbon tend to form spurious bonds if you hammer bond plus in levels like this. Like you have nitrogens, so that in this game have valence 5, and so they have a lot of things they would like to attach to, especially if you just put them on 4 bonders here. Like this puzzle has explicitly a ton of free radicals. This is a molecule that cannot exist, and it will need more bonds. So if you hammer bond plus, you are going to create spurious bonds. So this is another approach you can rule out just by looking at what you're doing.
Actually, we have a quite good bond hammer later, so it's not impossible, but it's not easy either. But the fused hammer does seem to be the more natural choice, as you risk less fusing when you don't want to than you do with bonding, and that's always the challenge with these hammer solutions, and why I think this puzzle is not especially well lent to one, because you have to pass a lot of the same thing over the fuser in different ways to make this work, and if you were bond hammering, you'd run into a similar issue of it's not fully bonded. So I think that's a more normal use case of a hammer solution, when either things are all fully fused or fully bonded. Then that gives you a lot more freedom to not have to worry about carefully pathing around the do we call these glyphs in Spacechem? Just
They have no name. The game calls them each by name, so
yeah.
you can call whatever. The code calls them components. It's not an especially good name. The save file calls them members, I think. Another bad name.
But obviously, the fuse hammering means you only need one fuse in this solution, which is saves a lot.
So this looks clean. This looks clean, and you know, it's not you cannot really decide it by just looking at the puzzle if a fuse hammer is going to win. And when you look at this, it's like, okay, this works. Red does a ton of puffing, like a ton of puffing, especially the leftmost flip-flop has that huge 3 rotation puff all around the reactor. That's a lot.
This one definitely loses out on the pathing, even compared to other fuse hammers we see later, managed to find a cleaner pathing to do this with.
Let's go on.
So run this to completion.
May want to run them to completion, unless they're super long.
Yeah, so this is 32 symbols for 12th place from mstang. And here we have a solution from Flexo in 11th
place. It's truly one Waldo.
It's truly one Waldo. Doesn't use a hammer, which, as I said before, avoids the awkward pathing of dodging the components / glyphs, but means that you have to be, it introduces awkward pathing because it means you can't go over the same place twice without getting lucky or some quite clever workarounds, whereas having 2 Waldos will allow you to go over it more. And it's, in a way, it can waste the resource of the second Waldo, but
yeah, he probably did this on purpose, but let's see it. Usually these kind of solutions are improved by having the other Waldo hammer on, say, output C or something like this. It's very, very rare that nothing is gained by hammering on something, at least, or by having blue doing some stupid line.
The only time I normally see solutions that don't have blue do anything might be very simple reactors in a multi-reactor puzzle.
Yeah, but even then you usually hammer output. Even here, hammering output saves you a cycle.
Yeah. So
yeah,
just doing that, but save a cycle, not the most impactful, but still.
Yeah, right.
Another thing this does is it has a unique construction method. It's quite similar to, I think it was, is it Yellowbunny? have to go back and check. 17th place was.
Yeah, you see the backbone.
Yellowbunny
You don't usually see it.
of making the NH backbone.
We will see it in a moment. And here it is. It makes a backbone.
Yeah.
And then he runs around with this thing. Yeah, and again, there are molecules that are built similarly to this in ResearchNet, and they are usually have different properties. Monomer are ordered differently, and this looks good though. This looks good, and it doesn't exploit symmetry, but manages to pack everything cleanly by having the bonders be used many times each.
And it has to do unique handling for all of the atoms it sticks on at the end, which has, when we're talking about Yellowbunny solution, we mentioned as a downside of the backbone approach. But here it manages to do them all in quite a simple parving loop, despite using more symbols than you'd like to input in grab and bond plus.
Yeah, I think this is the best single Waldo solution.
Yes.
I mean, if only maybe the only one, but
yeah, we had a couple of fun submissions, but this wins by quite a margin.
Yeah.
For 32 symbols in 11th place. So entering.
It's fast. It's fast as well.
And it's fast. Yes, the other backbone solution was the second fastest at 5, or was the fastest at 575. So this is a more cycles friendly approach.
Yeah, the backbone is typical cycle.
Yeah,
the backbone is typical cycles. You see it and think cycles. And this is fast as well.
Next up we have Andy in 10th place, so congrats on the top 10.
I haven't seen this because Andy keeps submitting like 3 minutes before deadline, and I'm at work and he has Red doing this simple loop.
Yeah, Red's doing simple loop. This is actually quite similar to the first solution we saw, being whoever's, and makes the same or very similar isomer to what they did in breaking one of the CH bonds to make a flat bit.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, this rejiggering costs you. Like when you need to break one bond and remake it, or the molecule won't fit, that costs you.
And this is another kind of solution paradigm I'd more associate with cycles, where one of the molecules does a very simple loop, very simple low length loop, doing the majority of the construction, and then the other Waldo runs around supporting and tidying up the molecule.
This is a typical symbols approach. Like in cycles, you don't usually have this in cycles. You have both Waldos extruding a crystal, and like having a Waldo doing a tight loop and the other one running around fixing typically symbols, I would say. And you see it in cycles, but it's rare. It's when you can have Red doing then a Shanley tight loop like 4, where you have no space for sinks or conditional branching. This screams symbols to me. If I just see the impact of this, I think where it loses is that this molecule needs a bit too much rejiggering, because if the output was 5 wide, you wouldn't need what blue does here, which is this thing, and this would get much better. If you could just have another column on the right to place the output.
It's a fairly well balanced approach. I can't identify like one place where it specifically loses out a lot to anything else. It just seems slightly less efficient in lots of small ways.
Yeah. This is the top 10.
Yeah, the top 10. So it's not a bad solve by any means.
It's fast.
Yeah, and it's fast.
So fast.
So that's 10th place out of 31 symbols. Next we have ThoughThought.
Let's notice that the curve means that Andy in 10th place gets 5 metric points out of a total of 7. So by this time everyone is already close enough, and here we are just looking for a precise splitting. ThoughThought.
So ThoughThought has another fuse hammer. So what should go for?
This is not fast.
This is not fast. This is a very symbols looking approach.
Yeah.
They choose to attach everything to a central nitrogen, which they place first and rotate it each time, which is quite a simple way to cut down your symbols.
Yeah.
But they lose out on maybe some of the better approaches by having to make sure to path around the fuser more than a solution that says, say, has a blue on a timing loop and can miss the fuser at times and hit it at others.
Yeah, get used to this output shape because I think every top solution has it.
I think probably every solution from now on will make this output shape.
With horizontal bonders. The horizontal bonders are the easiest way to bond that sort of triangle shape because otherwise it doesn't fit. And so everyone does it this way.
Yeah. The horizontal bonders, and horizontal O is the only way you can have two identical halves and not break any CH bonds.
Yeah, like this, if you make the other half and just want to put it below, which would be less symbols, you don't fit in the output zone. Like this puzzle really wants the output zone to be 5 wide, but it's 4 wide. Which is Spacechem.
And the other thing they mentioned is that they're losing 3 symbols to just
go around. If what they just said worked, you wouldn't need that because you would just go one below and it works out, but it doesn't. On to the next. This is 30 symbols and
30 symbols.
Yeah, run them to completion, they're not so long. And next, DariusOne is also 30 symbols. And it looks nothing alike.
It looks nothing like, and it does nothing like. It does nothing like any of them, being a bond hammer. DariusOne somehow manages to find a way to uniquely path all the different, all the 4 CH groups on the monomer differently and still get 30 symbols, which is quite impressive.
Yeah, there's one below for this. When it goes up. See, this is the kind of solution that would like to have 2 sensors. Georgia. It does a lot of pathing, and this I think would have liked to have 2 sensors to have some extra pathing options. But this is super niche.
Yes. there's a lot of, despite this pathing, it's all done very efficiently and still doesn't take up too many symbols.
Yes, he is in luck that this just needs 3 fuses.
Yeah.
You see on the bottom, the fuser is crowded. You cannot really fuse anymore, but you just need 3, so everything works out. If this was more fuse heavy, this would be 1, 2, and then 3 is coming down. Like 1 to fit a fourth, it's going to get harder. Because you need to, now you would need to go back and down and then go right and start eating into your impossibility. But this looks so good, looks good. And this is slightly faster than ThoughThought at 1221.
Still fairly slow, with quite long loopy paths.
Yeah, but it's not going to get better. Like this is the speed everything goes after after this solution. Like forget Andy's or Flexo's fast boys. Counterpoint gets into the 29.
Counterpoint going down to 29 into 8th place. Or
Now,
7th place, sorry.
This looks to me that this is too slow on the left, so I'm sure there is a reason. I imagine it's the fuser. Like you see on the left, red goes all the way down left.
Oh yeah.
And I am wondering why.
Because, I'm wondering why too. I hadn't noticed that. I only saw this one. This was submitted today, so I've only saw it briefly.
So this is the bond and rotate around this nitrogen, which makes clean solid. Yeah, this the creation loop is very clean, and this definitely lose cycles.
That? Yeah.
This gets below 1000. Well, this is already the fastest solution of top 9, but it would have been by a larger margin. But it matters here.
Would it have? I don't think it would have gained a place, would it?
No, this is the only 21, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it shows a lot of the things we've seen before, but just more efficient pathing.
Yeah, like everything looks tight and good. It's just other people found ways to do similar thing. Like this rotation and fuses, we'll see this again. It's just there are better ways to path it, but it's hard to find these kind of things by in a week.
Yeah, I would think that this construction here could be simplified, that you could reuse this rotate more and you could not path round, sorry. You cannot, but I think with how the fuse hammer, it's not going to work. But
you need a rotate because you need later. It's that messing the centerpiece of the structure is not going to work without measure refactoring.
It's next with Team Chixulub, if that's how you pronounce it, which is Rex Kicks and Lazy Comet.
Lazy Comet. Yeah. Oh, this Chubaldos.
So a proper 2-roller solution, and we haven't seen this yet. I don't think of one of the rollers.
This is Thinking Spirals.
Sorry.
Thinking Spirals has the same red thing.
But red on a
if you look at the symbol solution of Thinking Spirals, that's the same block of red. and because it needs to build a similar thing, something that rotates and bonds to itself. A spiral in that case, and this thing in this solution.
This is makes does the approach where you make a line of 3 CH2 groups and then handles the final one uniquely, which we have seen before, but this is a better implementation of it using this very simple red bounce back loop, which not having to go do a loop saves 2 hours and is normally a good thing for these simpler.
Notice that blue is also doing a timing loop.
Yeah.
Right now. And because red rotates, they are desynced. So the timing is not that easy because red is odd and blue is even.
But having things desynced means that you can hit a different part of your loop each time.
Yeah.
Which is what they use to time this fuse. So all the fuses are done just with this one fuse that is passed over at different points to.
This is an important principle.
Yeah.
When you have two Waldos doing loops, if one is a multiple of the other, or they are the same, of say one is twice as long, they always hit the same spots every time, and so you do the same thing over and over and over. If they like this, their maximum common divisor is 1 or 2. They drift all around each other, and they keep doing different things on each run around until one of them escapes. Usually you want to do it that way.
Yeah.
And this is desynced by either 1 or 3. I can see it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So it's got this timing loop, but that's the only thing that needs the timing here. The rest of it, they use wall stalls to reset the timing, and grabbing here, that could happen with any delay, pretty much.
Yeah. Just on the map, they are desynced by 1. So desyncing by 1 is the easiest way to have one progression where you bond on cycle, and then next loop bond on the next cycle. So you can do this scale. Yeah, but this is well done. Like the fuses use it 3 times in a precise way.
Yeah. And how they do that? How they do that is to put the fuser over the input, so it's less important, or you have more freedom of when you hit the fuse, because if you're passing over it, you have to hit it on exactly the cycle you pass over. But if you put it over the inputs, then you have all these cycles here you could possibly hit it on, and you're more likely to be able to find one that works. The downside is obviously that you have to be more careful about not hitting it when you don't want to, but it makes it more balanced and gives you a bit more freedom.
Yeah, this is clearly still doing by hand, still doable by hand. You don't need a script to do this. This is on the hard side of timing loops.
I guess
if you get rid of that, it's going to make an extra bond.
Come on, man, that's there for a reason. This solution is all about timing. It's not going to work.
I was wondering. I knew there would be
a bond minus on blue's path, which adds a symbol.
Yeah, I knew there would be a reason. I was just wondering what it was. I couldn't get it.
This when you have solutions like this and people put a flip-flop and you want to take it out, you usually need to change the timing of everything.
Yeah, and it's stalling on the wall, so it doesn't even cost a symbol. Nice job for 6th place. Next up, we drop 2 symbols to 5th place with Zig.
We are going to say 26 for a while.
We're going to so there's going to be a bit of a pile up here at 26.
So this is the slowest one because we are seeing it first, and this doesn't look too different from what we've just seen, like this blue thing.
Yeah, this one I don't think anyone else does, is to build a spiral out of 3 of the atoms and then handle the last one differently.
No, don't think so. Like you would think blue would do 3 or 4 of them, like the last solution we saw did, but it doesn't. There's also a very complex array of flip-flops on the right. Like that one goes below and then it inits it and then it goes the other way and then it comes back and then what you do from start you never do from the solution.
Yeah. I think that.
Yeah, I did start with the 4 like all built the same way, and after trying 100 different ways to save a symbol, I gave up and redid the approach.
Yeah, when I see solutions like this, I just start disassembling this kind of flip-flop bridges. It's complicated.
Yeah, the flip-flops conveniently worked out. The priming just happens at the timing loop.
If I had to understand this because I wanted to improve it, I would start by removing the flip-flop bridges and just doing all the arrows by hand, understanding what goes where, and then putting them back. And if I'm lucky, I do not put back as many as I took out.
I think what this flip-flop is doing is it's just routing the first isomer, the first monomer, over to this drop without going around this path.
Yeah, I think I didn't have room for the rotates or something. Yeah.
I can see that this is not unusual.
Yeah.
It still looks complicated.
Yeah, it's simpler than going left here.
You can't convince me otherwise. This looks complicated.
You can also prime it without the extra like lines everywhere by putting it directly to the left of the bottom fuse flip-flop, but that's just slightly slower.
Okay, in any case, it looks pretty nice, and it's at the bottom of the 26 pile-up. This is still recognizable, like you can tell what this does. And, it rotates and builds block, blue does magic to make the oxygen, and then it bonds to others. We would get to think it better harder to understand.
This isn't quite good as it's not so heavily timing based as it could have been. And that blue is just doing the oxygen and it just triggers that once. It's not continuously doing this on the timing loop to time fuses or something. Next up, running to completion. So nice job to get 26 symbols. So we have Dariush also on 26 symbols, but a little bit faster.
I think this was the first 26 submitted.
Yeah, this was submitted like a day into the puzzle being out.
I remember this holding the top spot for a bit, because it was the first 26. And this is still understandable.
Yeah.
If I remember it correctly, because it does some alternate pathing between the molecules, but they are handled by a very small handful of flip-flops. It's not that bad. It bounces down and then it will go up. Sensor will not trigger, so we'll make oxygen.
Yeah. This is essentially the put 3 of the CH2 groups in a line and then handle the last one differently. It's just does the different one second rather than, or third, sorry, rather than at the end.
Yes, because that's easier with 4 counters.
Yes.
You happen to have 1, 2, 1, 3. This kind of pattern. Or anyway, 2, 1, 3, 1 in terms of branches you hit. So you never get to do 2 equal things in a row when you want to use a simple 4 counter. And then you have blue getting out 1/2 and putting back in. And this is the reason you need to shuttle stuff this far from the input, because you absolutely need those two bonders to sit there where they sit. And this is what I was referring at the beginning of the video when I said you would really like 5 or 6 bonders here. If you could, you would have your two output bonders on the output and more bonders to assemble, say, on the input to make things easier.
Yeah. So blue here is just it's entirely used to move it out to the side and then do the output at the end.
Dariush wants us to say that he is just using 3 bonders.
And he is just using 3 bonders. It's very impressive to get
Yeah.
this far with just 3 bonders.
Yes, you made him happy. I think that's kind of important. Was this puzzle where I suggested to do, say, symbols plus bonders? Or something like that? Yeah.
And this
So-
would have... I'm not sure if it was this puzzle, but I considered it for this puzzle.
So Dariush, let it be known, you could have been first place. And I think if
I'm glad I didn't, because I like the variety we got, and I think we would have lost some variety doing making that
depending
decision.
on depending how much you wanted to push less bonders, you could have made 4 unusual, and you risked breeding 2 bonders, which would have been bad. Like this puzzle with 2 bonders is a completely different beast, and it's probably just a gigantic slog. Not something I would want to see with 2 bonders. And like what happened in I think last year it was where a puzzle wanted to be low bonders but made it too low, and so everyone did 2 bonders, and the field got homogeneous, and the solutions got these monsters that overcrowded these 2 bonders. So even though I think that slightly pushing for 3 would have helped, the solution field looks good. Nothing to say about that.
Yeah. Also, that's quite a nice rotate there. I think you could rotate one earlier, but it looks nice.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
And I think just to expand on what I triply said earlier, this solution and a lot of others use the fact that there's 4 CH2 compounds per monomer, and then you can use the quite easy to make 4 count flip-flop.
Yeah, because a 4 count flip-flop will do 2 times the same thing, and you have 2 identical parts. So it fits. If you can get the pathing to work, the concept fits. This is not so slow at 300.
Yeah, just over.
Now you have gggol.
Yep, now we have gggol for...
Let's see the theme of going learning symbols. Ooh, this is fully timed.
This is a fully timed one. I was hoping that someone would decide to torture themselves with timing, and this round that was gggol.
So, for who isn't clear on the term, this being fully timed means that there are no sinks or no stall sensors on blue. Blue never stops, and so you need to do whenever you do something with red, you need to think about what blue is doing and to make the delta paths work with red. Work with blue. This is also long and complex, so timing this is not easy.
Yeah.
And you see that flip-flop there, that's pure timing.
Yeah.
Pure timing. Let's see what this does. Yeah, this does rotate bond, rotate bond, rotate bond. I would expect, but yeah, you have a kind of big amount of freedom timing the loops, but not so big.
Yeah.
That fuse. So getting these all together is not easy.
Yes, I think it's on the edge of human doable, unlike BigMangoHead, which wasn't. You could imagine a human doing that, but it would take a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, this is on the edge. There is stuff as hard as this in top solutions of ResearchNet, but not much harder than this, because this is long, it's complex. The saving grace of this solution is that blue just times fuse. It's not super bad.
Yes.
And like there are no suspicious behavior that times 3 symbols, and that's seriously hard. Even if the timing loop is lower, but is smaller, but you're timing 3 symbols, that's more complex. Timing 1 symbol saves you from a good deal of insanity.
Yes.
It is
Definitely.
still pretty insane.
Yeah. And another thing to point out is that gggol does give himself a bit of freedom in that this symbol here is entirely due to timing, so is coming back earlier here rather than going over here.
Yeah.
This is what I was talking about. I think BigMangoHead solution, where it makes this path here, the bottom path and the top half have the same length. It makes timing it a little bit easier, but it's cost him a symbol to do that.
Yeah, it would be seriously hard to have those have different lengths, because you want to do 2 identical halves. Like you would need to have 2 non-identical halves, like we have seen in earlier solutions, that work when you do some delta pathing.
Yeah.
You need the script if you wanted to attempt.
I would imagine it's not possible, but
yeah, I wouldn't try it, but like I would try it a bit by hand to get a feel. But if I wanted to optimize this solution specifically, I would formalize this, script it, and see if there is some blue handling that works. Otherwise, it takes age. I just wanted to mention you do not need to be a programmer to play Spacechem. There are particular slice of puzzles that are these ones that lend themselves to hard timing loop that benefit from knowing scripting language. But very rare tournaments do not come down to who knows Python better.
Yes, and you can always avoid the Python with how much trial and error you can put up with.
Yeah, for sure. Like I wanted just to be clear, for newcomers, the average tournament has one puzzle that benefits from scripting, and only if you're doing some specific type of solution that may or may not win.
Yeah.
So it's not that every tournament you end up writing 2 or 3 scripts and the winner needs to know how to code reasonably well.
Definitely not. And I think it's even quite a narrow class of timing solutions where a script helps that much, because there's so many little tricks you can pull that it'll be quite hard to write a script to account for them all.
You just use a script when you have, say, imagine this template and you want to know if you can cut the red arrow on the top drop.
Yeah.
If you want to say, okay, I do this, but when the top drop, I want to cut one arrow, and you ask yourself, can I do it? And then you ask a script, you can do it. That's what I would use scripting for if I had to optimize this because, say, it was my job.
Anyway, nice solve, gggol.
It's gone.
Very impressive to get this timing to work out for such a low solve, such a low symbol count. And next to second place, we have SpiritualShampoo, who I think is new to Spacechem. I believe they're a fairly prolific Opus Magnum player, but I don't think they've been in the Spacechem tournament before. Am I right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's transfer. But his skills transfer particularly well. And this is timed as well. But you can see this is a much nicer timing loop. Yeah. There are no sensors on red, there are no rotates, and blue is stall sensitive. So this is much easier to time. Much easier.
Yeah.
And this is the typical example of dumb Valdo, smart Valdo, where red does something simple and blue runs around the reactor. And this is spectacularly good for how simple it is.
Yeah, I really like this solution because it shows you don't need to do crazy stuff to get on the podium for this puzzle. It's
yeah, I just said you don't need to program. Yeah, you can easily time this by hand.
Yeah.
Of course, you need the idea to do this. And that's that part. And the the important idea here is the fuse bond group, which lets you do this typewriter motion, where you fuse and bring one over, fuse and bring one over.
So this is the kind of often seen approach of put three of the CH2s in a line and then handle the final one differently. Yeah, a particularly well done version of it. And you can see here this loop up here is just for timing. This could go down further, I think.
There is a lot of luck.
There's
lots of luck.
There's a bit of luck, but there's also quite a bit of freedom in this, and stalling on this here. That it's not the like. It doesn't work by a miracle. It's something you could like. Right.
Yeah, it's something you could believe you can build if you have the idea. Like this is the sort of top symbol solution you can find on mid-level ResearchNet puzzles. There are stuff that looks like this. Literally, several puzzles look like this, and they look as hard as this. You know, you look at the solution and I'm like, okay, this looks reasonably hard and not impossible. I could have done this.
Yeah.
So this is the moment. Oh, I could have won if I had the idea. And now we get to first place where this
that falls apart.
After you have seen this, you would like, oh no, I could have won. It was clever, but it was simple. And then you get to 25. 25 was submitted, I think, 5 days ago or so. So it's been on the top for 2/3 of a period. Congratulations, rezoons.
Yeah.
And the title describes what the solution does. It's absurd. This is absurd. It bounces. Rotates, it rotates the other way. It bounces again, and then it bounces again, and by some blue timing magic, you always hit the sensor in the right spot and never break stuff. You get it winning, and then here you have blue stalling and everything begins anew. Like, this is not terrible to time, but this is terrible to conceive.
Yeah.
This is not something you think. I want to hear how rezoons thought about this thing, because when I see the previous solution by SpiritualShampoo, this is like something I can think up. When I say this, I'm like, what I'm even trying to achieve. When I build this and I have the rotate on one direction and rotate, these 3 rotates are unusual in this kind of solution. This doesn't look something humans design, you know.
Yeah.
Like when you give one of those fancy generative AIs images and we make 15 digits on someone, and this looks like that. There are too many rotates. Like you have 10 digits on your. You have an end with 7 digits. The products of those like Midjourney or what's the name of the other one? I mean, neural networks that draw, and this looks like that. There are too many rotates, there are too many sensors, and it works.
Yeah.
I cannot figure out how. Like the delivery part is easy to understand. At the right of a flip-flop array, that's easy. That's the standard. We go down one time and up the other time without losing symbols. You can find a simple example of this in shared space 2. It's a clean example of how you do this box. That puzzle is just the rightmost box. What you do on the left is trivial. Shared space 1 and shared space 2. That's not 7 volume. But what you do on the left here is easy. I do not understand it and I don't want to.
I think the only way I'd come up with something like this is I'd be like, well, wouldn't it be cool if I could get this bouncing back and forward and
Yeah,
fusing
yeah.
at all the right time, and then I'd stumble upon it just by
Yeah,
going, oh, I
reasons
can
is
time
saying
it better with some rotates here, and somehow it works. I don't know how
reasons is
rezoons
saying
did it.
reasons is saying exactly that. Like, you use it to do something simpler to understand, but more symbol heavy, and then it changed and changed it until it got this, and it just works by black magic.
Yeah.
So you cannot solve this with script if we are going back on the topic of programming, because you need the idea to do this, and once you have the idea, you can tune this by hand. It's symbols.
Yeah, you cannot script this.
Yeah, you cannot tell a program to search for this kind of things. Not yet. When we'll have a program that search from this kind of things, humans will be obsolete. And this is also not as slow. This is as fast as the second place solution, I think. Yeah, it's like 50 cycles slower. So it's on the double for faster, and it's like this hellish.
Yeah.
If you wanted it to go faster, you would spend a symbol on that array of flip-flop, and this would probably be 800, something like that.
I think that
Absolutely.
when I looked at this, or when I saw gggol, I compared it to this, and I think this one, it's similar in timing magic, but this one's, the senses just work out better. You gain a few extra rotates, but you also lose a lot of pathing doing timing.
Yeah, I want to be honest, I not tell you why this is
Yeah,
better. Yes, it's one less symbol, but
I can't tell you exactly why.
if you ask me, there are the gggol approach and the reasons approach, which approach would win this puzzle, I won't be able to tell.
No, not stuff.
Like, if it's possible that if this puzzle were to be optimized for another 2 months, gggol's approach would win by cutting a symbol and then winning by 10 cycles. What do you know? Yeah. It's or maybe SpiritualShampoo approach would win by cutting another couple of symbols by using some flip-flops, and then being faster. What do you know?
If there's anything to cut here, it's these two rotates.
Yeah, if you
but
can
I
cut
can't
this
imagine the sensor magic that will do that. I'm sure rezoons tried.
Top solutions are so different that if we were to optimize this as a community for a few months, I have no idea which approach would end up winning. While on the previous week, we had seen what the good way was, aside from Andy. Andy did something else, but we had an idea of what to look for. Here it's still up for grabs.
Okay, so that's the winner. So congratulations on your first place in the first week. Nice job. And now we got a couple of fun solutions. We will start with Yellowbunny's single water solution. So we have already seen a single water solution. I think it was from Flexo at 32 symbols. Yellowbunny's comes in at 61, which is a bit higher. And I think the principal reason for this is that Flexo just had a better method. Yellowbunny's non-challenge solve placed quite.
Yeah, this is a more cookie cutter approach.
Yeah.
Imagine, because I cannot really parse this by hand. But for one Waldo, a non-cookie cutter approach was much better. And this is the kind of stuff you need to test out.
Yeah.
Because it's not really easy to tell when you have one Waldo what's going on. Is this doing the backbone?
Yeah, so it's a one Waldo version of their.
Oh my god. Courage, man.
Of their scoring solve, which wasn't the strongest concept. Which makes doing a one water approach much harder and more impressive that it works.
Holy shit, the flip-flops.
I I cannot do solves like this.
This is the kind of stuff I have fun districating. You know, I look at them, I remove flip-flops, I remove flip-flops, I remove flip-flops, and I break them down and see what comes out of them, but usually not that much.
I can tell you something fun about this. Half the flip-flops in this are just to save one symbol, because
For real?
the flip-flop that is on the beta input thing really wants to be a 3-count flip-flop in C6 by our new notation or whatever.
Yeah,
In
I've seen that
column,
one.
yeah,
Next
that
to
one
input
wants to
output.
be a 3-count flip-flop, but putting a 3-count flip-flop there adds another flip-flop and 4 arrows. And instead, I just make it a 2-count flip-flop, and I just have to get back there somehow after activating it for the first time without changing the state of the rest of the thing. And
Oh,
I
man.
do that by inserting 2 more 3-count flip-flops at the bottom and another flip-flop at the top, as well as a grab that resets the state of where the molecule is sitting.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that usually has a better solution. Like, not always, but usually you can fix that.
Yeah.
Like this.
So it's optimized.
Yes, it's a local minimum. Or for some pretty terrifying metric, but it's a local minimum. It works. It's more than you can say of what I built.
So basically, right now the flip-flop just shouldn't activate, but it does, so it has to move
You
all the
run
way
around
through.
and run around and bring it up and run around and run around and bring it down. Why? And so it goes back and now it's in the state you want. Why?
Yeah.
There has to be a better way.
It's like, you know, when I finish my first Go At The Cycles puzzle and I don't know how to get the Waldo back to the beginning, so I route it back through all the paths with an insane flip-flop mess. But just that times 10.
Yeah, here you have a sensor, so this kind of routing you usually do by not outputting and then routing via sensor. But this is so packed that even that wouldn't work to do a level of routing. Congratulations, I guess.
It's a very pretty solve. Like grid-like structures.
Yes, okay.
I moved to foxadecimal, also with a single Waldo solve, but slightly better at, or quite a bit better at 47 symbols. And again,
I see a flip-flop that can be primed.
Oh,
We will forgive him for this.
It's not non-scoring, then it's fine.
Yeah, right. But if you want to see it, it's the rightmost flip-flop. That one, exactly. Then you bring the start all. I don't know if that can. I haven't done all the math, and I don't think it can because it goes the wrong way. You lose if you prime that. You lose the priming on another one.
Yeah, you can prime it like that, but then lose. Oh, maybe not. I don't know.
No, that's not gonna work.
No.
You need to slow down. You're getting into weeds. So just the one I said you need to bring the start down and it works. You bring the start to exactly. Vigor priming, it's gone. What does this do? This is unusual.
Yeah, again, this is, well, it uses the same approach as scoring solve, just a one Waldo version of that. This whole box at the top is identical to that scoring solve.
Okay. I didn't seen this one. Like I just logged in when I saw this and I wasn't online. Okay, I get it. It's a 4 counter, right? It's a 4 counter. Makes this compact molecule, okay, shuffles around and then bounce it back. Yeah, it's clear what it does. This is a very compact molecule.
So this was my approach for solving the puzzle.
Very pretty shape. And this also suffers from puffing issues because you see when it outputs it goes back and then comes back in because it needs to reset the flip-flop state. You can tell it in a moment. You get it back. Now you see that you want the flip-flops to be usual. Now you would want to go below, but you need to refix flip-flop, and so you all the wall run around again.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So slightly less painful one water approach than we saw earlier. Yeah, and as I said when we saw the scoring solve, this box is quite a conceptually simple way of doing it.
Yeah, but it's hard to put the last pieces in. Like the first 3 pieces are perfect, but then putting in the oxygen and then bonding to oxygen that way costs you a lot. Otherwise, if you just had to do one monomer, it looked better.
Yeah, like I can show you a more optimized version of that. This was my test solve, how I thought people might solve it. And it does the same thing, but it's
this is cleaner oxygen insertion.
Cleaner oxygen insertion, but it's still quite it loses a lot in the amount it has to grab and drop stuff.
Yeah, that's because you reform the input.
Yeah,
that's the big issue. The efficient way, as we have seen, is to bond rotate.
Yeah, and you've got to leave something over here, grab and put it over here, put it over here, put it over here, and that takes more symbols than you'd want to use.
Branching is for who?
Branching is for people who are too weak to do maths, Darius says.
Oh, we have seen. Oh, is this fully timed?
It's fully timed. Huge loops.
I've not seen this because I didn't load on submissions. What the heck is this doing?
Yeah, Dariush has a perfectly good, quite sensible normal solve. Decides to torture himself with timing for a fun solve.
I mean, this is not really timing. It's just 2 loops as big as each other, and they have a ton of slack.
It is not.
What do you mean it is not?
It is not that.
Oh, it is not. That's a start.
Pause.
What's the ratio of this nightmare?
I didn't work out the ratio, but I will see in a bit.
1, 2, 3.
They rejoin for each monomer.
Okay, this is 5 to 4. It is not terrible.
See?
This is, I mean, pretty severe, but 5 to 4 is still manageable. Like there are solutions that you have seen that has worse radius than 5 to 4.
Right. It's still not easy to do.
No, of course not. I just wanted to mention that because you can see this as a huge ton of slack, and the actual ratio ends out being small integers. So this looks chaotic when you see it, but it was not terrible to program. Now, of course, Dariush is writing and he is about to insult me, but I think the assessment of what looks chaotic to watch and what is actually hard to time when you do it is really different. When you just see these solutions for the first time, like this looks super chaotic, but it has so much slack that you can time it block by block. But I just said it took a lot of time for it to get it working because this is long. Like you need to wait a lot, and when you change something and it changes the time 2 loops prior.
Yeah,
but 5 to 4, it's still just 4 loops to keep track of. If you have, say, 8 to 9, that's terrifying. 8 to 9, you have 8 loops to track off. This 4 is bad, but not terrible.
What makes it hard is that you're doing so much on each one of those 4 to 5, so there's a lot you have to avoid hitting and a lot that, or you have to each time you go around. And the fact that both Waldos have these grabs and drops and actually do stuff means you have to be a lot more careful.
This is built complex on purpose.
Yeah.
You can easily tell why this is not going to win. It's because if you're doing all this work to time a solution, you may as well put all the working symbols on, say, red, and have blue on something simple.
Yeah.
Simpler to use less arrows, because red is already running around in that area. Most probably it can do a couple extra things. Yeah. This solution isn't so easy that you need to time it well.
Why something like this is even particularly possible is that Dariush allows himself to not care about symbols, just being a fun solve. So you can have these big, long.
Yeah, exactly. This is built to look cursed, not to win. And like Zeke mentions that this is a reason why solutions that are without waste may not run forever. And like these things, I did the math earlier with you, so it's 5 to 4. But imagine it was not actually 5 to 4. It was a very long running ratio that doesn't actually get to completion in 10. Like if it was, imagine 89 to 82. And you may not see anything bad, but maybe by the time you get to the 80th output, it crashes.
I'd be very surprised if something like that was anything more than a novelty, except for maybe a random or a production puzzle. It's somewhere. I can't imagine that ever being a competitive solve.
That's something that happens.
Yeah.
In production puzzles, it happens that you do, say, one loop of... the typical thing is that you do one loop on 9, one loop on 10, leave slack, and have it so the 2 loops do the right amount of periods when you do a 40th output, and then they will crash at 49. Sorry, at 41. This is typical. I just posted a solution on the channel the other day that does exactly this. It's 8 and 10, and it works at the last output, and then if you were to run it to 41 outputs, it would crash.
Yeah.
It's really, really, really typical.
Yeah.
And you do that because you want to save time on its lags. Optimization at the highest levels in latency is a mess.
I think that it's pretty hard to do that on a research puzzle, I guess, unless you're trying to.
Because you do this kind of stuff in production puzzles because you want to exploit the one input every 10 cycles.
Yeah.
To exploit that, you need to do long-standing timing games. Here, you have one input every cycle. There is no long-standing times. There is no long-standing timing games you can play. You want to get stuff as fast as possible, or as clockwork as possible in symbols. You do not want to do some slightly advancing cross-process to just hit one cycle at a time, because you can hit every cycle you want for free from the input in researches.
And there are plenty of other pitfalls to avoid with stuff not running forever in cycles. In production, sorry.
This is not the typical way stuff doesn't run forever. The typical way is you leave waste.
You leave waste, or the randomness can cause stuff to get unbalanced. And
the randomness causes you to make there is a failing case, or
there's a
another
failing
thing.
case if you say if a certain set of 6 groupings survive exactly that way in a row, it's not that uncommon thing to happen. But
yeah, those are the most common failure condition. Production has many more failure conditions that have to do with the 10 latency. So do you mean you could fail to get a molecule when you want it and then it crashes? Researchers have very easily defined ways to crash.
Yeah.
So I think we're done.
Yeah, we're done to that. So, all the solutions. So good job everyone on the first round.